In 1981, Frogger was one of the most popular video games on the planet. 30 years later, no one really cares. Unlike some of its notable arcade peers, Frogger hasn't been very successful outside of the coin-op realm, a tradition of ignominy that continues with Frogger 3D for the Nintendo 3DS. Even if you could shove quarters into it, this game wouldn't be any good. Released just a few weeks ago, Frogger 3D is only Konami's second release for the 3DS. Now, it's worth mentioning they'll eventually be releasing a 3D remake of Metal Gear Solid 3, and whoever heard of that, a 3DS remake. But if this is the kind of stuff Konami's gonna put out in the meantime, well, may their roads be congested with trucks. Now, Frogger 3D is like the arcade original. At least in the most basic sense, that you play as a jaywalking frog. Hey, why did the frog cross the road? Because he hasn't been relevant in 3 decades. If you didn't get the punchline, that's because there isn't one. This game is enough of a joke all by itself. Playing Frogger 3D is kind of like listening to a really bad cover band. It may play the right notes, but they sound so bad that it actually makes you wonder if they ever sounded good in the first place. I guess maybe someone spilled beer on the soundboard. You play Frogger 3D by jumping and dodging, which is the right place to start. You're charged with reaching 3 goals in each level, navigating all kinds of typical Frogger craziness in the process. But Frogger 3D also throws in these collectible coins, which are scattered across the level and give you bonus points if you can collect them en route to the goals. Why a frog would want to collect coins is still beyond me. In fact, that kinda gets to the heart of Frogger 3D's problems. It has some of the right ideas, but the game around them is just awful. Level design is actually the worst culprit here. Frogger 3D has some decent mechanics, but the levels are never fun or interesting to play. They're sort of arbitrary, and the layouts are often more frustrating than entertaining. But I think the biggest problem is that the entire look of the game just doesn't make any sense. Well, Frogger might work in polygonal form, but not these polygons. This game looks like a relic from the mid-90s, back when developers were so enthralled with the idea of 3D graphics that they completely ignored whether or not the 3D graphics actually looked good. This is low res, low poly, and low inspiration. It's one thing to ask $30 for a 3DS game that should cost a fraction the price, but it's another thing entirely to ask $30 for a 3DS game as mediocre as Frogger 3D, a game that takes an old icon and throws them into traffic.